Welcome to Between Product and Partnerships, a podcast focused on bringing together product, partnership, and engineering leaders to discuss how to build, support, and scale SaaS ecosystems. This podcast is presented by Pandium, an integration platform for building native integrations.
Hi, everyone. This is Cristina. Thanks for listening to our podcast, Between Product and Partnerships. If you're listening for the first time, we talk about the challenges and what it takes to build integrations, partnerships, and SaaS platforms. We talk to leaders working on these problems to learn about trends and how they're navigating the space. Today, we're so excited to have Bani Malhotra with us. She is a product leader who has a ton of experience in e-commerce, having spent time at Walmart, Shipt, and Narvar. Bani, can you give us a little bit about your background and a little introduction to yourself?
Of course. Thank you to Cristina and Pandium for having me, and hello to everybody watching. I'm Bani Malhotra, and I transitioned into product management after an early career in mergers and acquisition, investment banking, and venture capital. I've been in product management for over a decade now and spent the last 5+ years in leadership roles. So like Cristina said, I've primarily been focusing on direct-to-consumer digital strategy in retail, telehealth, and grocery industries. I've had the pleasure and the privilege of being an early member of 3 high-growth startups that were successfully acquired and playing a key part in scaling e-commerce products at Walmart, the Fortune 1 company. In my most recent role at Walmart, I led product teams and portfolios across personalization, site experience, site tooling, and strategic projects. I live in the Bay Area with my husband and 2 little kids. And outside of my passion for product, I really love dancing, reading mystery novels, and coaching women in tech. So really looking forward to this conversation and sharing insights with all of you.
What kind of dancing? Any specific kind or type?
I love hip hop. I've learned salsa. I've learned Indian classical and freestyle. So any Bollywood, anything that I can move to, I love just moving and expressing myself through dance.
Oh man, you're gonna have to send me a video. I'm sure there's videos out there. Maybe I'll Google it. We'll see. Well, thank you so much for the intro. So it sounds like you've been with a few companies that have gone through acquisition, and that's always it can take a lot of work, right, to integrate 2 companies together. So you were at Shipt when it was acquired by Target.
Yes.
I'm sure there were challenges there. Maybe if you could tell us a little bit about what Shipt did or does and what you did for them. And then would love to know sort of what some of those challenges were, and we can dive deeply into one specific project if you like.
Wonderful. So I'm glad you picked Shipt. I joined Shipt in its early days as the first product manager under the head of product. We were still a very lean, mean team in San Francisco, and a few of us were out there in Alabama where our CEO started and founded the company. And for all of us who aren't as familiar with Target or Shipt, Target is obviously a retail giant, the 7th, in fact, largest in the US, and sells a variety of products, toys, electronics, groceries, apparel, and such. And at the time of acquisition, Shipt was the underdog in online grocery service, competing with Instacart and, the others. And when the $550 million acquisition happened, it obviously felt great to all of us. We had been working hard, and this felt like a big celebration. I also think that when you are a part of the company that's being acquired, there is a little bit of anxiety and maybe nervousness that kind of is in the mix along with all the happy and exciting emotions, and just the anxiety of what to expect next, of possible change to culture, to leadership, priorities, team structures, just the uncertainty of it all. And I remember some of us feeling that in some shape or form. But post acquisitions, one of the best things that I remember was that Shipt really wanted to hold on to and protect the high growth pace and scrappiness and resourcefulness and the unique company culture that had really helped shape our company and bring us to that point. And Target actually encouraged it. And so I think that served both companies really well. And one of the things that I took away from what I think was a successful merger of 2 companies.
How big was Shipt when they were acquired, employee-wise?
I think that, and I hope I don't get this wrong because it's been a few years, less than 1,000 for sure. I don't remember if it was 600, 700. My memory is failing me, but we were not a very big, team of people
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
time of acquisition.
I'm curious what parts of the shipped product were maintained, or kind of how did that shake
Yes.
out?
Yes. So I think the big integration that followed post acquisition was the same day next day delivery offering for Target. So if you read up on the acquisition too, you'll find that Target acquired Shipt, it was a strategic long-term bet, but primarily to integrate Shipt's same day next day shopping service and leverage this amazing, incredible, going above and beyond fleet of shoppers that Shipt had hired and trained over the years. So post acquisition, this service was now to be integrated directly into the Target ecosystem so that Target.com, which is the website, and the Target digital apps could offer same day, next day delivery in addition to shipping to your house and pick up from the store. And doing this for Target meant expanding into a whole new fulfillment method. Imagine getting something from Target in the next hour, or the same day. And for Shipt, it also meant doing a lot more and building a lot more expertise than just delivering groceries and essentials, which until that point had been. So there hadn't been a lot of foray into general merchandise, things like toys, baby care, kitchenware, things like that, and more that were offered at Target. So the project really was merging this capability that Shipt had grown and built into this mode and embedded into the Target ecosystem that was a running full-fledged, large enterprise, retail enterprise, and marry, those two things between the two companies. And it was a massive undertaking, but it was also a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just chatting with someone in product from another big box retailer who shall remain nameless. And they were articulating some of the challenge of trying to marry, as you said, like the in-store, the warehouse, kind of ship from warehouse, and then they were talking about some like viral type of toys actually, and how it was when they were preparing to be able to allow people to do in-store pickup, buy in the store, buy online and have it shipped, and then also do this like last mile kind of thing, that it was a really interesting project, because for that product, a lot of them it was like disparate systems, right? It's like not every system was talking to one centralized place to be able to make sure that inventory for a viral product was going to be there. So I'm curious if you guys had a similar thing. I don't know how Target's stuff works, but
Yes. I'm just going to share a little bit of context and then tackle the question you asked directly. So it was a massive undertaking, as you'd imagine this one to be. It was marrying what we had, but also building and actually relaying some of the foundation that we had technically. We actually scoped and built 8+ microservices, each doing a particular part of the Shipt tech infrastructure, and basically taking that and exploding into microservices. So, every job, every communication between the two systems would be simpler and more efficient and faster and all of that. So technically that's the route we went. We kind of exploded the stack into different microservices and then built it for scale, which is, just to touch on what I think was done well and some of the challenges we kind of had to overcome. The technical, I think, decisions that we made had to be made, and the product decisions that we made along the way were to also equip Shipt to offer this offering as a service, not just to Target, but to other retailers. Just to give context, Shipt was a marketplace. It was a marketplace when it got acquired. So we had the Myers of the world and the Costco's of the world and the Kroger's of the world. And then Shipt got acquired by Target. So not only did that mean that as our shoppers, the Shipt shoppers, started to do more of Target orders that weren't Shipt orders, but were fulfilled by the shopper fleet at Shipt, how do we protect and advocate for the Shipt shoppers, success and making sure that there is enough in this to make it matter to them? Also, how do you ensure that Shipt's marketplace remains sacrosanct? The work that had been done until that point, the partnerships that had been created until that point, how do you preserve those while you are in the process of being acquired and building this ecosystem of services. So the way we decided to steer the ship was to actually build for a retailer agnostic integration. We were building for Target, but some of the decisions that we made along the way were to equip us if we should need to in the future to expand this beyond Target. So we made a lot of those longer term decisions, which actually helped us in the future. But even beyond that, it was a complex integration for us. On the ship side, we were moving beyond a lot of the groceries and essentials into the world of like toys and what have you in general merchandise. We were, as part of the Ship team, I was the DRI on the project, the directly responsible individual, working with, um, team was working with the SVPs at Target and leadership. How do you advocate for what you think is right when you're working with the company that, has acquired you? And so there was a lot of like cultural and technical complexity to it. The category expansion, preserving the ship shoppers culture and doing right by them, the tech stack and building for the future, keeping in mind that Shipt was a marketplace at that point, protecting our moat in some sense. So all of those were kind of aspects that needed to play out and had to be thought through.
I'm curious on that note, right, which is sort of interpersonal, it's commercial and interpersonal, how, if you have any tips navigating what you had to do. And I ask because I think a lot of our listeners, especially product folks, work at companies that maybe are doing the upmarket transition, right? It's like we're going from SMBs to enterprise. And
Right.
when you're dealing with stakeholders, even if they're a customer or you're a vendor, or whatever it is, or a partner, there just can be like some pretty strong cultural differences depending on the size of that company, where they're based, how long they've been around. And I've been through it a number of times. I find it really fascinating to watch like a smaller company or a newer company interact with these big guys. But I'm curious from your perspective, especially because at that time you were an employee sort of both, right? And you want to make sure that you're keeping aligned with the goals of the parent company, but then also your own users that I'm sure you love. So
Yes.
I'm curious if you have any tips, like maybe not, but
Yeah, no, I think you hit a really good point. And when I was navigating this, there were many points and times when, and this is one of the cultural aspects of projects that are of this nature, where it's not just a technical integration, it's also in some sense, cultural melding. You're also kind of leading through change. And here, we were not just leading through change, it was a massive undertaking that involved a ton of really smart, talented, opinionated people and leaders from both the companies. But beyond that, there was a deep undercurrent of concern, I'd say, where some of the Shipt employees felt like we might be cannibalizing our own business. And just to add a little bit of context here for the listeners, what we were essentially doing was to use our own fleet to take orders to deliver for Target.com. So orders that were initiated not on Shipt, but on Target.com, not on the Shipt app, but on the Target apps. And so, as you would imagine, and we are navigating through the acquisition, the little bit of uncertainty that comes with the early side of just post acquisition, but also this undercurrent of concern of some type, some legit and some not. But that Shipt might be cannibalizing its own business. And I remember that being one of the hardest aspects of this integration. I remember sitting in multiple times rooms with stakeholders from the operation teams or, other functions, helping them kind of navigate through change and leading through change as product managers essentially have to do is never easy, especially if there's a product pivot like it was for Target, or a new Shipt offering, a new product offering like it was for Shipt. I think it takes a lot of resilience. When I look back, I made my fair share of mistakes and had misses in communication, etc. But when I look back in hindsight, it was such an amazing learning experience, because what helped us deliver this on time and be the successful integration that it was. It clocks billions of dollars for Target now, is I think belief that we were doing right by the companies, that we were making all the right decisions for our shopper fleet. Like we advocated for tipping. There was to be no integration launch if tipping for shoppers didn't exist. Things like that took a lot of resilience, and it took a lot of being laser focused, not personally emotional or investing emotions, but being very, very laser focused on metrics and goals. So when you break things down into milestones, when you attach things to metrics, you're also able to rally the people who may be half convinced or not as convinced along you, because it starts to make sense. So when you're speaking to a large audience and sometimes you feel like you're building the aircraft midair, something that helped me was believing in the project, having empathy for all of these different thoughts and diversity of stakeholders, but also being very metrics and goal oriented and reiterating it over and over and over again. I think that really helped me personally navigate, especially when we were in that situation of what does this mean for Shipt? And now, you are the person who's doing this for Target. So, you are doing this to Shipt, and really to, again, make it a very thoughtful, empathetic conversation and to ground things on evidence. So, for example, things like when we did it in a staggered phase. That would be another tip that I would share. When you think something is risky and complex, which massive undertakings usually are, staggering them out in a way makes the launch actually, it doesn't slow you down. It didn't slow us down in this case, but it actually gave us so many learnings, and we actually were able to preempt a lot of and mitigate a lot of the risks because we did it in a smaller blast radius.
Yeah, it also helps with the confidence, right? Like if
It
you see
helps
like
with the
little things working.
Exactly. And so to tie this back to the cultural piece, also the cultural navigation aspect, also using that staggered launch helped me build confidence. Because then you could show metrics, you could show the impact that it was having in those few markets. And those were some of our largest markets. And it started to build confidence. So I think that a lot of communication, a lot of empathy helped and helps in such integration projects.
100% agree with you on doing like phased launches, and you can maybe have one big splashy go live, but having like a lot of small ones leading into that
Leading up
also
to
helps
it.
keep you sane too, and like the people on the
Yes,
steering
yes,
committee, right?
yes, yes.
It's interesting too, like I feel like when a lot of these larger kind of older quote unquote or not digital first companies
Yes,
acquire startups, part of it is that they want to bring that like energy and that
yes.
agility and like the speed and all of that to their technology arm. And sometimes in my experience, the folks on the ground maybe are not as into it as leadership. It's like, hey, we're going to bring in this new team of people. They're going to like get things rolling. It's going to be really fun. Just like, like you see on TV, these companies move fast, break things. But then you've
Right.
also got folks that maybe have been working at this company for a long time. And like, they kind of have they have a routine and they know what they're
Right.
doing. I'm curious, like if using metrics like helped you get around that. And I think
Mm,
it's a shift from thinking potentially about, output, like how much work am I doing today versus the outcome. And sometimes the output can be a lot less to get the same outcome,
yes.
depending on like what you're working on and kind of the tooling that you use. So I'm curious, also that's a cultural thing, right? Like how you navigated that and working with some of those teams.
Yes. I have to say, I am still friends with my partners in crime, tech, design, product at Target. All some
Awesome.
have moved around, some have still continue to work at Target. And one of the reasons for that really strong friendship today is the strong collaboration that we had then. I will say we also got a little bit lucky in that there was a team of product and engineering and design that was assembled between, much leaner on the Shipt side, slightly bigger on the Target side, where we started from a position of trust. That was the way we laid the groundwork. We kind of built trust by giving trust first and expected best intentions from each other. So when I would speak to my partner in crime at Target and advocate for X, or he would do the same for Y. I would sit down and listen versus wait to respond and push back. And I think it goes back to the first principles of collaboration and cross-functional alignment and those pieces. But at the end of the day, we were grounding ourselves in metrics and success. Ultimately, the team at Target, the DRIs at Target, and us, we were aligned to the same goal. And so I think that really helped me. And I think alludes to kind of the point that you were making is I have always found that staying focused on metrics and leaning into metrics driven leadership has helped. And I think it's something that we should continuously model for our teams and the broader org integration or not, is because what you're doing essentially is you're shifting the price from how much effort is being put in, whether an artifact has been produced, whether a presentation was done or not, whether a meeting was held or not, to did you move the chosen metric of success up and to the right? And this is not just a mindset leadership change or a team management change, but also an ethos change of how you measure success as a team. And I have always found that it serves the team, the business, and the customers, the stakeholders better because you have this common ground. So it helped in the integration project as well because we were looking at the same things. Schedules, fraud inside the store, what's the feedback from the shoppers, what's the feedback from the in-store operations team, etc., etc. So we were all aligned. And this means that I spoke about building the flight while midair. Metrics is not something that you do all of that kind of mid-flight. That is something that needs serious thought. You really need to sit down and say, what defines success for this thing, and work backwards from that. If I have the time, I want to give a small example at Walmart. And I love to give this example because it's so simple and kind of clarifies the point. Not just being metrics driven, but focusing on the right metrics. That is the key to the puzzle. Because one of the products I led was the product details page. So when you go to walmart.com or any e-commerce site, the page that gives you all the specifications about the fridge you want to buy or the electronics that you're looking at, and it allows you to add to cart. So it has all the information that you need about the product. So if you were to focus on the metric of the simple add to cart, it makes logical sense. You're helping people look at the product, you're helping them add to cart and, move along their way. But when you give it more purpose to what that page is supposed to do, what's the mission of the page, what is the problem you're trying to solve with that touch point, it's that you're helping people make a confident decision. Not just any decision, a confident, well thought out decision, which means that adding to cart may not be the only metric or the right metric to chase. The quality of the add to cart makes sense. Why? So if you remove the price of a product or the shipping speed of a product, your add to carts on the product details page go up. But that doesn't necessarily increase conversion because when they reach cart, they see, oh my God, this is going to reach me in 8 days, not 2. So you have improved the so-called measure of success on your product, but that's not the right metric for the customer or the business. So when you focus on the quality of the add to cart, which is, was it a confident decision, which is the problem you're meant to solve with that touch point. So that's a good example, a small example of being metrics driven, but also really being intentional of what metrics should guide that.
I love that example. And I think it reminds me of like what we think about here at Pandium is like the North Star, which is like the big, like, what is the thing that we are trying to do? And then, if, in my opinion, if you have something like that, you can make little North Stars, right? Like within individual products, but always look back to that, like, hey, we've gotten like, really in the weeds, but like, are we actually increasing conversion and decreasing returns or whatever it is, right? And there's all kinds of metrics, to your point, that you can measure that like don't speak to like time on page. I'm like, is having more time on page actually better? Like, are people confused by being on the page? Like all of these types of things. And I think that's what makes a really good PM, right? Is someone that can like holistically
Yes.
look at these things. And I think a secondary effect, and I'm curious if this was the same for you, is that if you have this like stated goal that doesn't necessarily, to your point, have like rigid metrics associated with it, it's just like this big goal. If you start to go down the wrong path and you see that like you're deviating from that goal, it's easy to say like, hey, we're going to pull the plug on this, or like we need to really scrap this, or we need to make a real big reset, because there's this external thing that like you could point to. Like, it's not that I, Cristina, as the PM, made the wrong choice when I designed this product or whatever. It's that it's gotten too far from this goal that we all agree that we have.
Yes.
And I think that it allows people to like back away from things that aren't working in a way that is less emotional, if I may. And I'm curious if I'm just riffing, but I'm curious if you've had a similar experience.
No, absolutely. I think at least for me, building on what you said, metrics grounds you in the right problems to solve. And that allows you to pick the most efficient solution to solve it. Not just the right solution, but the most efficient solution to solve it. When you are, for example, just building on the add to cart, when figured out the problem statement is the quality of the add to cart, we fixed and changed and evolved our roadmap and our strategy in service of that metric then. And it allowed us to then experiment and pick the right solutions. So when you break the metric down, you say, okay, quality of add to cart, what does it mean to our customers? It means X, Y, and Z. So I think you're spot on. It actually allows you to disassociate from the solution, but to stay grounded in the problem, because the problem is directly the efficacy of the solution. It's the metric.
Yeah, that is success, right? Is like, if you understand the problem, solving the problem should be
Exactly. And it shifts the focus from how good is a solution to does it solve the problem and how well it solves the problem. And that's where I think being very intentional and being very proactive with measures of success, with being goal-oriented, really helps. It also helps with cross-functional conversations and alignments and things like that.
I love what you said about efficiency too, because I feel like that the most efficient solution may not be like the coolest or the most fun.
Yes.
I've worked in tech long enough and have worked with a lot of engineers that I feel like there are some folks and product people too that like have an impulse to reinvent a wheel.
Yes.
Just because like it would be cool to do that. And like maybe you get an incremental value for like a ton of effort. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Like that might be slightly better, but that's going to take 12 weeks versus using something off the shelf that's going to take 3 hours. Like, what is actually the right path there? And I think there are times where you reinvent that wheel because you need something different. But the efficiency in making those trade-offs of like, this is like maybe slightly not as good, but is way faster, is going to get us there a year faster. Like that, I think also makes a great PM, is like being able to advocate for those choices. And to your point, it's also interesting because I think there's not competing priorities. Like everybody wants stuff to get done, but some departments want stuff to get done much faster than other departments care about. And I'm curious, like when you think about the cross-functional alignment, I'm just thinking about where I've always sat, like in between the CRO and the CTO. And it's like on the one side, you want something really, really quality. And on the other side, you want something really, really fast, and trying to kind of figure out how to manage all of the priorities and also still deliver something that I was proud of was always an exercise in charm, I think, to some extent. I'm curious what your experience is there with you working with different teams.
Yes. I think one of the most important aspects of product management is to be able to engage and align and manage cross-functional partnerships, because we kind of sit right smack in the middle of marketing and engineering and design and analytics and leadership and up and across and down and diagonal, all sorts of way possible. You're interacting with so many people across the board. And when you're what I found working in a large enterprise like Walmart, it's even more important to do this aspect of your job well, because you have that many more stakeholders and that much more hierarchy and those many more teams within product and outside of product. And the decision process involves a lot more people, and by association involves a lot more process. I think this is such an important part of just the jobs that we do and really leading your product to success in a way. And I kind of default to these what I think are first principles, but what I call my kind of 3 C's of cross-functional alignment: credibility, context, and communication. I've kind of categorized every tip and tool that I have into one of these 3 buckets when it comes to cross-functional alignment. And credibility is essentially, do I have the subject matter expertise? And I always push my team to do the same, is to be the person who knows their product better than anybody else in the org. If you don't dog food your own products, if you don't listen in on customer calls, if you don't meet customers, if you don't understand your app reviews, if you don't understand the quantitative data, you are not a subject matter expert. And that expertise allows you to build gut instinct and subject matter expertise about your products, but it also builds trust and credibility through your work with your cross-functional partners. Trust is almost a prerequisite to influencing without authority. And so I think that's one, building credibility. And it means a lot of hard work on your end, due diligence, understanding your product, deep, understanding of things related to your products. The second is communication. As PMs, you have to be amazing at communication, whether it's a massive integration project like the Shipt and Target one, or even just big launches that are going to be announced through PR, or even small scale ones. The gist is that over communicating is better than under communicating. Finding the right mix for the right audience, the right seniority levels need different vantage points and details, but doing that, and through communication, understanding motivations of your cross-functional partners, what goals are they trying to accomplish, all of that. Communication basically helps you build relationships, build connections, understand, figure out motivations, all of that. And then the last, which is my favorite, which I think becomes really important as you go up in seniority, as well as the larger the org, the more important this is context. Context, I feel, is the armor for the decisions that you pick to stand behind. So context is business context, customer context, competitive context, macroeconomic context, a context of the team, context of the process, context of the culture. When you really understand and communicate, so federate out and consume context from the right set of stakeholders, it feeds into relationship, it feeds into communication, it feeds into credibility. It also allows you to build on the expertise of your stakeholders and vice versa. It also gives you the tools to handle conflict, to handle hard conversations. Context basically means that you are doing the hard work of learning about business beyond the scope of your work. So if I understand the context, the broader context of the business strategy, just like you were saying, like what is the North Star, what metrics should ladder up to the ultimate goal. If I don't have that context, then I will stick to add to cart. I will never think about the quality of add to cart and things like that. So I think context, credibility, and communication have always helped me in good stead when I am trying to work, engage, partner, and align with my cross-functional partners.
I love the framing of that. And I think, as you become more trusted within an organization, like the requirement to explain that context, I think starts to wane a little bit. Not that you don't want to have it yourself, but people start to just believe and understand that you have already put the thought into all of those things, especially when it comes to interpersonal stuff, right? Like if it's we're going to staff this project in this way, and it's because I have been out there working with these people, I know who's excited about this, I know who there's just so much things that are not really tangible that I think goes into being a great PM. I'm going to steal that framing. I can't wait for this to come out and everyone to hear it. And on that note, I think we are running up on time here. This has been such a great conversation. I feel like we could do this forever. Where can folks find you? Can they find you on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is perfect.
Amazing. Well, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time. Really good chat. I bet, again, we could do this forever. For folks that are listening, if you want more content about product partnerships, integrations, all the things, you can check out our website, pandium.com. We've got a great blog. We've got all these podcasts, all kinds of worksheets, great stuff. Bani, thanks so much again. I'm sure I will see you out there, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you so much for having me. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed our content, subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. For more content on tech partnerships, integrations, and APIs, check out our articles, ebooks, and other resources in the description or visit Pandium's website.